So today's video, we're going to talk about trig identities, grade 11 to be specific. What I'm going to go through simplifying trig identities. So before we start answering the question, we're going to talk about the toolbox. As you know, when you're solving things, you need things that are going to assist you so that you can solve the problem. So this is our toolbox, which is we have the quotient identity, which is known as tan theta is equals to sine theta over cos theta. Then we have the square identity, which is sine squared theta plus cos squared theta. So before we move on, I want to talk more about the square identity. We see the fact that the square identity can be written in many ways. Sine squared theta plus cos squared theta can be written as cos squared theta, right, plus sine squared theta is equals to 1. This and this are exactly the same thing, right? Then this also, we can derive other identities from it. If we take the cos and take it to the other side, since it's positive, and when we take it to the other side, it becomes negative, we can get what? Sine squared theta is equals to 1 minus cos squared theta, right? Then if we do the same thing here, but we take what you call the sine to the other side, we're going to find that we have cos squared theta is equals to 1 minus sine squared theta, right? So this is all the identities that I wanted to talk about. Really important that from this you derive this 3, because this is going to help you when you simplify and prove. Now let's look at the first example. Before we look at the first example, I want to talk about something. Every time when you get to a test paper, do this. It's going to help you. It's going to save your life. Always write all your trig identities on the side of the paper, so when you solve the question, you know which trig to apply, right? So with this question, we have tan squared theta multiplied by cos squared theta, right? Then they say simplify. So here we see the fact that we have tan squared theta, right? And here that's the only identity plus this one, which is this one that we can change. But first, let's change this one. We know the fact that we can change tan squared theta can be basically be equals to sine squared theta divided by cos squared theta. So we're going to substitute this here, right? So let's do that. This is going to be equals to what? Sine squared theta divided by what? Cos squared theta multiplied by cos squared theta. Since everything is multiplying, what can you do is you can cancel out things. So the cos squared theta and the cos squared theta here in the numerator, because this is the same as divided by 1, can what? Cancel out. So what you're going to be left is sine squared theta. And this will be your final answer. So now looking at the second question. So we have 1 over cos squared theta minus tan squared theta. So we know the fact that we can change this one, but let's not look at it. Let's look at this one first. We see the fact that we have again tan squared theta, which is we can change into this. So let's do that. We know the fact that y tan squared theta is equals to what? Sine squared theta divided by cos squared theta. So we're going to substitute this here. So let's do that. So if we say 1 over cos squared theta, right, minus, then we substitute that, which is going to be sine squared theta divided by cos squared theta, right? And what do we see? We see the fact that we have cos squared theta and cos squared theta as being a common denominator. So we can write the denominator being one thing, because we know this. We know that if we have, for example, A divided by B plus or minus C divided by B. Since the denominator are the same, what can we do? We can write it as common. So this thing can be the same as A plus or minus, in our case because of its minus, C divided by just B. So this can be written as this. So let's do that. So we know the fact that we can say 1 minus sine squared theta can be all divided by what? By cos squared theta. But see this, we see something. We see the fact that we have 1 minus here. we have 1 minus sine squared theta, which can be changed into what? 1 minus sine, what you call sine squared theta, can be changed into cos squared theta. So let's change that. So this can be changed into cos squared theta divided by what? Cos squared theta. Cos squared theta divided by cos squared theta, since it's the same thing, this is the same as saying equals to 1. And this is your final answer. Now let's simplify this equation. We have 2 tan x, open bracket, cos x divided by sine x, close bracket, minus 1. We need to simplify this to its simple ratio. So let's look at this. What do we have? We look at this one inside the bracket. We see the fact that it's cos x divided by sine x. And it's not the same as tan theta is equals to cos theta. So this one, this identity is not going to work here. But look, we have 10x. So we know the fact that we can change the 10x into what? Sine x divided by cos x. So let's do that. Let's take this and substitute it here. So we're going to have 2 open bracket is going to be what? Sine x divided by cos x. Close bracket. This is going to be multiplied by what? Cos x divided by sine x, close bracket, minus 1. What do we see? We can multiply the numerator to the numerator and the denominator to the denominator. Since this one is over 1, so it's going to be 2 multiplied by sine x multiplied by cos x. So you're going to have 2 sine x cos x. Then this whole thing is going to be 1 multiplied by cos multiplied by sine. So it's going to be the same as cos x multiplied by sine x. Then this whole thing is going to be minus 1, right? So looking at this and not ignoring this, we see the fact that here everything is multiplied, so we can cancel things, right? If we can cancel things, we see the fact that we have sine here and we have sine here, we have cos here and we have cos here. So the sine and coses are completely cancelled, so we have gonna have 2. Then this was remaining, which is minus 1. So 2 minus 1 is going to give us what? It's going to give us positive 1. And this is your final answer. So now we have a question, which is question number 4. It says sine alpha, divided by tan alpha. And they say simplify to its simplest ratio. So what do we see here? The only thing that we can change is this one. So let's do that. We can change it into this trig identity. So let's do that. We know the fact that we're going to have sine alpha divided by what? This is going to change into sine alpha divided by cos alpha, right? Then what we're going to do is we're going to change this, because we know the fact that, let me write it here. We know the fact that if we have A divided by C divided by D, right? This is the same as saying A divided by C over D. So this is what I'm going to do here. So if I do that, it's going to be sine, let me write it in red, either way. Sine alpha divided by sine alpha divided by what? Cos alpha, right? So, and what do we know again? We know that if we have A divided by C divided by D, right? If we have that and we want to change this division into multiplication, what we can do is we can say A multiplied, then the D is going to come to the top and the C is going to come to the bottom. So what's going to happen is the numerator and denominator are going to change. So what's going to be on the bottom comes on top, and what's going to be on top is going to come in the bottom. So that's what we're going to do. So it's going to be what? D divided by C. So that's what we're going to do here. So what we're going to have is going to be equals to sine alpha, only this one changes, meaning only this one changes. It's going to be multiplied by, this is going to go up and this one's going to go down. So it's going to be cos alpha divided by sine alpha. Since everything is multiplying, right, what can we do is we can cancel the sine and sine here, because if this is the same as divided by 1, we can cancel this one that's on top to the one that's at the bottom. So sine. So our final answer is going to be what? Cos alpha. Then we're done with the question. So now let's move on to this one, right? So when we move on to this one, they say cos squared theta multiplied by tan squared theta plus tan squared theta multiplied by cos squared theta. What do we see? We see the fact that we have a common factor. So here we need to factorize before doing anything. We see the fact that we have tan squared theta and tan squared theta. If you don't understand factorization, I have a video explaining the whole concept. It's going to be up in the eye, or it's going to be down in the description. So let's continue to solve this question. So we need to take tan squared theta as a common factor. So let's do that. If we take it out, it's going to be what? Tan squared theta is being common, open bracket. What's going to be left is this. So we're going to be left with cos squared theta, right? Plus here, this one that's left is just sine squared theta, right? So that's what we're going to be left with. We know for a fact that cos squared theta plus sine squared theta gives you what? 1. So you know the fact that tan squared theta, open bracket, is multiplied by 1. So our final answer is going to be tan squared theta. And that's the final answer. So let's move on to number 6, where we need to simplify this. We have 1 minus sine theta cos theta multiplied by tan theta. The only one that we can change is this one. So let's do that. Tan theta is the same as sine theta divided by cos theta. So we're going to substitute this with this. So let's do that. So it's going to be 1 minus what? Sine theta, right? Multiplied by cos theta multiplied by this identity, which is sine theta divided by cos theta, right? So ignoring this, seeing the fact that this part, everything is multiplication, right? We can cancel things, right? Since everything is multiplying here. We see the fact that this is the numerator, the entire numerator, and this is the denominator. We see the fact that what cos is going to cancel out. So cos is going to cancel out. So let's write the final answer. So the final answer here is going to be what? It's going to be 1 minus, what's going to be left here is going to be sine alpha, and the one that's in the bracket, which is sine alpha. No, sine theta. Sorry, sine theta. Then we know the fact that sine theta multiplied by sine theta is going to give us sine squared theta. So this is going to be sine squared theta because it's both of them. Then we know something. We have 1 minus sine squared theta. This can be changed into this one. So it's going to be cos squared theta. So this will be your final answer. So now let's move on to the last question under simplifying, right? We have open bracket 1 minus cos squared beta divided by cos squared beta, close bracket, minus tan squared beta, right? So the easiest way is to change this one. So let's do that. If we change that one, 1 minus cos squared theta is going to give us what? Sine, right? So we're going to change this one to this one. So I'm talking about this one so that you guys don't get confused. So this whole thing is going to change into sine squared beta. So it's going to be sine squared beta divided by what? Cos squared beta minus tan squared beta. Look at this beautiful thing. We have sine squared beta divided by cos squared beta, which is the same as this one. So we're going to change what? This whole thing into this, but having it squared. So that's what we're going to do. So this whole thing is going to be changed into tan squared beta minus tan squared beta. Taking this down, right? Then what do we see is that tan squared beta minus tan squared beta is basically equals to 0. And this will be your final answer.